Hi there, it's Rebecca with Inner Power Training. Today we're going to talk about your higher self and how to communicate with your higher self. Because if you're feeling stuck, your higher self is your best friend that can help you get unstuck if you know how to connect. That's the important part. That's what this, you know, time we're living in, the great ascension, the spiritual awakening. This is what we're all about, is waking up to the realization that we have a higher self. We are so much more than just our three-dimensional selves living in the three-dimensional world with our physical bodies. We are much, much more than that. We just need to know how to connect. So, today we're going to talk about that. Have you ever had a really strong feeling that turned out to be absolutely right? That gut feeling that you shouldn't or should do something and you heeded it and it was the right thing to do. Personally, I'll tell you something, it saved my life because I was a stewardess during 9/11 in Boston for United Airlines, which was one of the ones that hit the tower, and being the number one purser first in line to get my bid because everything's based on seniority with the airlines. I went and bid that flight 175. My intuition kicked in. I had a conversation. My higher self guided me. I went to the computer and changed my bid before they closed for the September schedule in 2001. And I'll tell you something, before that happened, I had overcome my fear of flying because I flew for 35 years, but I got to a point where I had no more fear of flying at all. I loved being up in the sky. I have no fear of driving. I have no fear of fear because once you realize that your higher self is guiding you, you feel protected. You don't worry about things like you do when you're not connected to your higher self. So that's another good reason to find your higher self and find that connection. So today we're going to talk about how you can align with your higher self and what it is. It's actually the internal wise part of you that exists beyond your ego. You see, your ego is useful in this three-dimensional world. You have to have a personality and an ego and a way to function with your five senses as you move around in the three-dimensional world. But beyond that, you have this very wise higher self that can know your future. It knows why you came here. It knows everything, and you can communicate with it once you learn how because it's connected to source or God or universal energy, whatever you want to call it. And unlike the lower mind, which always reacts with fear and needs to protect the physical body, that's why we have fear, because we need to stay safe. But when you connect with the higher self and you communicate from love and clarity and timeless wisdom, you are actually operating at a very, very different frequency. And that's what you want to do because then you become fearless and you become protected. And your higher self is actually always sending you messages. There are five ways that I'm going to go over that your higher self likes to speak to you. Sometimes you hear an inner voice. They call it clairaudience. I've had this happen where I hear this voice. Usually, when I hear it, it's outside of my body, over to my left, and it's a male voice. Now, I've asked myself, where does this voice come from? Because it's very interesting when it happens, and it always pops up when I really, really, really need an answer to something, like, what do I do next? Where am I supposed to go? It gave me advice one time about a healing, how I needed to love a particular person with all my heart, and that would release this negative, poisonous energy that was in me that was giving me a bad situation called an appendicitis attack. And once I heard the voice, I knew what I had to do. It might even say, to go in a different direction. You know, I've had the voice tell me exactly what to do. It told me to go work in Boston. And I did. I went and I interviewed at the Christian Science Church, and I worked there as a tour guide, which was a very, very rewarding experience for me to meet people from all over the world, from different backgrounds and religions, and have really fascinating conversations with people, and to learn more and more and more about spiritual healing, which is the foundation teaching of Christian Science. It reinstates primitive Christianity and that lost element of healing that Jesus was teaching people. And also, intuition gives you a very strong sense in the body that you need to do this just now. It gives you that immediacy. Like at the last minute, sometimes it will yank you out of a situation. People have talked about their higher self literally pulling their hair when they were driving a car to get them to go in a different direction to avoid an accident sometimes, or yelling at them to move or turn or do something. They can even feel the presence of a physical entity. Your higher self can take many forms. Once you're tuned into it, you can experience many unusual things. Sometimes it'll come to you in the form of synchronicities. And you'll just see that, oh, that's more than a coincidence. I was supposed to meet this person that I was just thinking about. Or you were supposed to get this message. Or you think about someone and the phone rings and they tell you something you need to know. Synchronicities are very, very, very powerful. I've told this story before. My name is Rebecca Tripp. Juan Tripp founded Pan American Airways. And people used to say to me when I started my flying career, "Are you Juan Tripp's daughter?" And I'd go, "No, why would I be with this airline? Wouldn't I be with Pan American?" I didn't even apply to Pan American. Many years later, shortly after I retired from my 35-year career at United, I go to a party and I meet Charlie Tripp, who is Juan Tripp's son. And where does he live? In my high school boyfriend's house in my hometown. It's a town on the ocean in Massachusetts, and he sailed in, fell in love with it, and bought that particular house that I used to spend a lot of time hanging out in when I was a teenager. Very interesting synchronicity. And it was kind of like my higher self was telling me, see, you really did pick the right airline, because Pan American by that point was bankrupt. We had taken over many of their flights, their routes in the Pacific, which I used to fly on their old airplanes because we bought those. I worked with crews that had worked for Pan American, and some of them went through a lot of stress with that bankruptcy, and I never had to do that. So it was very interesting the way my higher self showed me that I picked the right thing because I was guided. I applied to TWA and they didn't even hire me. And I wrote them a letter asking them why, and they said, "No reason. You can apply later on if you want to." So your higher self will guide you to the right situation, the right jobs, the right people, even though sometimes it seems like it could be the wrong thing. When you look back on it, you go, "Oh, that was the right thing after all. Look at what I learned, or look at the experience I had." It was very interesting. Your higher self can also come to you in dreams, even prophetic dreams. I've had that happen where you dream about something and then it happens. It's like because there is no time in the realm where your higher self resides in the fifth dimension. There is no time there. Time is in the 3D world, in the lower dimensions. So that's an interesting aspect of your higher self, that it can see things that are coming down the road. It probably won't tell you everything because that would be, it would make it difficult to learn your lessons because, like they say, this is a classroom, you're here to learn. And so you need to kind of be surprised every now and then when things show up. But if you expect only good things to show up, they will. Now, you can also use your imagination to connect with your higher self. If you want to manifest a more perfect version of yourself, feel yourself as perfect, having radiant health, being on purpose, having wonderful relationships, being successful, and believe it and feel it. That's your higher self coming through, because you know the reality is, because your higher self is eternal, it really can't get sick. It really cannot have an accident. It really cannot suffer. It's the human self that picks up on all those things and tries to experience them, but you can always transform it if you know how to work from the end result. You need to dig deeply into the teachings of the metaphysical teachers to get good at it. Or you can just meditate on it, because you have all the wisdom within you that you need, but you need to know how to go within and tap into it. Now, if you want to strengthen that connection with your higher self, you need to create a time every day where you're quiet. It could be when you wake up in the morning, spend 10 minutes where you're just disconnected from, the things you do in your life. Go within, really use that time to reflect, maybe spiritualize your thought with something very positive that you like to read or study. And you can ask your higher self questions, and it will give you answers. If you want to tap in and get an answer to something, the best time to do that is when you're falling asleep at night. You use the technique called the mental video technique that I've talked about in other videos, and you can ask for guidance. If you're stuck and you don't know what you are supposed to do, you can ask for guidance. I've done this many times. I've gone to my higher self, and it's just like connecting with a best friend. And I will ask it to please show me what I need to know to resolve a situation or bring something into my life that will get me to the next level. How do you stay in that high vibration? You have to feel the emotions of gratitude, forgiveness, love, because these emotions will elevate your frequency and make you more receptive. If you're down there in the trenches with hatred and anger and jealousy and all those negative emotions, you're blocking. You want to get rid of those. You want to go into the higher frequencies of compassion, love, forgiveness. And if you begin to understand why radical forgiveness is so important, because you're only poisoning yourself if you're not being forgiving, then you will enjoy doing it. You won't be stuck going around and around and around like a, little animal in a thing that just twirls around, unable to get out. If you're stuck, you will find the way out once you get into the higher frequencies. And you might have that big aha moment where everything just shifts and changes very radically. That's the beauty of connecting with your higher self. It can, like that, instantly bring you the solution to what it is that you're working on. So in closing, when you learn to hear your higher self and you stop seeking answers outside of yourself, you become your own guide, your own healer, and your own visionary. And that is the ultimate, because your higher self is your master teacher. It is the you that knows everything you need to know. And once you understand how to connect with it, you will never feel alone. You won't get stressed out anymore. You won't have anxiety. You'll sleep better. Everything becomes lighter and more uplifting, because no matter what's happening in the three-dimensional world, you realize that you, because of your way of viewing things and your perception of things and your ability to tap into your higher self, is in the driver's seat. And you can let whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, higher intelligence, guide you in a way that is totally productive and positive every day of your life. It's the only way to go. If you really want to dig more deeply into this, go to the Mega Manifestation Method course that I have in my website. And it even has the meditations that you need in order to get to that level of consciousness called the alpha level, where you can reprogram and connect with your higher self. So I hope you do it. I hope you work on yourself, and I wish you all the best for a happy, productive, peaceful existence in this three-dimensional realm. The more you tap into your higher self and realize that you're not just a three-dimensional being, you are an infinite being, the happier you become.